Right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's seminar. It is called Connecting Scotland Across the Generations. I'm Bev McLean and I'm a Digital Development Officer at SCVO. At the moment, my life is pretty much preoccupied with the Connecting Scotland programme, which you may or may not be aware of. It's a very ambitious programme this year. We're in phase 2 at the moment, rolling out devices and connectivity and digital champion support to people across Scotland, obviously as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. Myself and my colleague Claire are here today to host the seminar in conjunction with Generations working together.
Morning, everybody.
Oh, sorry, did you hear that okay?
Yes, morning, sorry everyone. Hi, I'm Claire.
We are here today, we're recording the seminar. As I said, we're going to be putting this onto our YouTube channel and our website. So if you want to take your camera off, please feel free to do so. And if you all remain muted for the presentation, that would be great. And I'll now hand over to Bella Kerr from Generations Working Together, who's going to get things going with her presentation.
Welcome to today's webinar, Connecting Generations Digitally, about bringing different generations together, especially younger and older people, but generations in between too, to help and support each other to build skills and confidence around digital technology. I'm going to show a short PowerPoint, and then we're going to speak to two people who are both youth workers in different organisations. One is Ryan Mackay from Citadel Centre in Edinburgh, and the other is Yvonne Boa from Highland in Ullapool. And both have stories to tell about reflections on digital connections between young and older people in their community. So we're going to talk a bit about social isolation and loneliness and how it's something that our society is concerned about as we approach winter, especially during this time of COVID. Among older people and younger people, some of whom may be living at home in shielding and some in care homes across Scotland. So I'm going to share a short presentation and then we'll go on to have a conversation with Ryan and Yvonne, and it will be a very informal conversation, and after that we'll go into questions with yourselves. So I'm just going to share the screen now. And it's back to front. Sorry about that, guys. So here we are, connecting generations digitally across Scotland. So we're going to talk today about connecting generations through digital means. Lockdown has changed how we connect, and SCVO has kindly let us use this platform to talk to you about projects that could be happening intergenerationally, especially people who have been, they've connected with the Connecting Scotland and have digital champions. I did speak to someone from Voluntary Action East Renfrewshire the other day who has had digital champion training and is hoping to do some connections. So these are the people who are going to be speaking today, along with my colleague Kate Samuels from Generations Working Together, who's taken care of the chat box. An intergenerational approach could help with winter and the isolation and loneliness that takes place, especially during the time of COVID for older people. We hope that bringing generations together will build skills and confidence in technology, and access to technology and the internet and social media has the potential to make a positive impact on loneliness by reaching out to older and people and involving younger people of any age. Some of the digital connections may allow us to assist older adults by motivating them to stay active and productive with steps or walking exercises or many other activities. The end result may be that older and younger people feel more confident and form new relationships and keep connected with their local community. Generations connected digitally can be involved in many different projects, and I've just put up a few here. I know that you'll probably get access to the PowerPoint later and it gives some ideas. So it may be that people could do maths, they could play chess, they can just have some fun, they can connect about a local history project, grow vegetables like strawberries and potatoes and share it online and share recipes and I have a good example of our Gael carers who started off on the telephone because it was difficult to connect. But Mary Fleck from our Gael carers has informed me now that they're all connected and they now have a learn to knit and natter, and it's working very well for them. So this is something that we hope people will think of ideas that could connect generations. And there are many older people who are very good at fixing a puncture, and they might want to share that in video with younger people to teach them how to do so, and vice versa. So I'd like now to go over to Ryan Mackay, and the questions that we have are: how are we meaningfully engaging younger and older people through technology? And I'm just going to show, well, I'll leave the PowerPoint up, Ryan, and you can come in.
That's fine. Yeah, I was just morning all. If anyone's admiring the fantastic backdrop I've got here, I'm in an amazing space in Ocean Terminal in Edinburgh called the Living Memory Association, and there's some beautiful kind of 1940s jazz music playing in the background. So if you can hear that, I hope you enjoy it. But just before I kick off, I just wanted to say a little bit about, obviously who I am and who I work for. So my name's Ryan Mackay, and I work for the Citadel Youth Centre here in Leith in Edinburgh. And I'm involved in two main pieces of intergenerational work that we deliver. So firstly, probably the easiest way to explain it, actually, I'll explain pre-lockdown how things would run, and then I can maybe dip into, how things have been going more recently. So that first activity is called New Spin, and it's our intergenerational cafe that we deliver with our partners, Pomeni Development Project. And before lockdown, we'd be looking at 15 older people, 15 young people, on a Friday. The whole centre's in use and doing a range of health and wellbeing and fun activities. In more recent years, we also had a much more bigger focus on bringing people together around food. So most recently being funded by the Soil Association, but very much that idea that, we're bringing people together and, to get those relationships, really flourishing in the centre. And the other activity that I've been involved in since 2015 is our intergenerational project, Old School, which originally was purely schools-based, but in the last year and a half has moved into also community-based groups. And the main aim of that is effectively targeting young people at risk of disengaging from education and using creative and artistic means in order to get them on board and to support them to deliver intergenerational activity with older people. Typically that would follow a kind of 3 phases model, and it was very structured, and we would have a section in the school or in the community, then a neutral venue where we bring the young and older people together. But naturally, obviously with the whole restrictions going on, that's kind of been thrown out the window. So Bella, you kindly shared the toolkit and some of the resources that were launched before this meeting. Definitely tap into that. There's some excellent stuff, but obviously that framework's had to be adapted quite significantly. And really, on to things more recently since lockdown, I think, like everyone at the Citadel, our first main priority was, food, isolation. It was getting those initial contacts in, and that might have been through doing food deliveries or through phone calls, but getting those initial links and making sure everyone was okay before steadily moving into trying to deliver some digital intergenerational work, which I have to say was a complete building process. And it wasn't until you asked me to speak here, Bella, how much I realised we'd achieved since the summer, because it started off as me and one older gentleman on Facebook video. That was it. And for about 3 sessions, I thought, we're doomed. We're not going to go anywhere with this. But, steady progress and switching, if I use the example of New Spin, rather than being 30 young and older people together in one space, it's had to become a remote service. So delivering weekly activity packs in order for those young and older people to take part. And the numbers have significantly dropped. We've got 10 on our books now with, an average of 5 or 6 taking part each session. I'll come on to some more about activity packs shortly, because I like to explore that further. But that would be the main difference. For New Spin, we're now, it's a digital activity, and there's a whole load of extra work that has to go in terms of getting those delivery packs delivered. Old School, similarly, we would be sometimes looking at 12 kids on board, maybe 5 older people, throwing in 3 volunteers. We could easily get 20 doing this activity. It's now been kind of focused in. It's me, a volunteer, 5 young people, and 2 adults who are coming in remotely. the challenge with that, and I have to say, you know, we're all on Zoom today, it's a fantastic piece of kit. However, in terms of a hybrid approach, we came into loads of challenges with that. And actually, I think we're still not at the point where the technology is perfect. And I think, considering that, you know, I think we'll be in this situation intergenerationally till at least the summer, that's kind of took some thought and a lot of kind of thinking to kind of get round that. And the way I would describe it is, you know, generally, you know, we are asynchronous right now. It's instantaneous. I can see Bella and the other, you know, 60 odd folk online right now. But in order to get that meaningful engagement with young and old, we can try and attempt that and draw on that, but there has to be a lot more activity, which is, if I'm getting this right, asynchronous. So that might be phone calls, it might be doing the delivery and seeing an older person mask to mask, it might be planning, you know, a video recording of recording the older person and then take back to the kids. It might be the kids do a letter that can then be posted out to the older people. But it's trying to kind of maintain that meaningful connection in between these instantaneous connections. I'm kind of diving into the two questions at once here, Bella, apologies. But
you're right, it's very important. I mean, because we've come across a lot of examples where what's happened initially is that it stopped completely. And then slowly but surely we've had phone calls. And then, as Mary from Argyll Carers had said in the beginning in March, she said, this is impossible. And she just said she didn't know how she was going to get older people online. And we're now here and they're all on. So it's taken 6 months to do so, but she's done it. We'll go over to Yvonne now and we'll come back to you, Ryan, with some discussion. I can see lots of information in chat. So while Yvonne's chatting, I'll have a look at the chat and see what people are asking. So I'll hand you over to Yvonne now. And Yvonne, do you want me to put up the screen again for the questions? And you've got a rough idea of what they were, haven't you?
I think so. And I'm just going to apologise because I've still got a bit of a cold, okay? I don't think it's COVID, I think it's just a cold, but if I start coughing or whatever. So yeah, I'm Yvonne Bowe. I'm a Youth Development Officer in Ullapool in the Northwest Highlands. I work for High Life Highland. And we have been doing intergenerational projects for, I think it's 12 years since we started a project, which started called, it was Get to Know Your Techno. It was our first project, which was basically decided one day in my youth work office as being somebody in the, not in the old category, but definitely not in the young category, that sometimes struggle myself with some technology, and some of the young people have helped me. And then it developed to like, oh, well, we could actually get the young people to help older people just with various different things. So we started drop-ins monthly that the young people helped older people with, whether it's a mobile phone or email or whatever device that they needed. And then we worked out quite quickly that there was a lot more than just people coming to get that help and support. It really did build up friendships and broke down the barriers in this area, which is a lovely Highland tourist area, but there's still a lot of, like, older people's perception of young people as sort of the dodgy crowd. It totally changed in the last, or even after about a couple of years. I would say that there's so much more respect in our community between the generations than there ever have been. And it works both ways, because the stereotypes of what the young people might have thought of older people also broke down. They've also then, they've delivered peer training to other areas as well. The young people have done peer training on doing intergenerational work. So that's built their confidence and it's been really good. But we also have had Bank of Scotland coming into some of our sessions to help older people learn about digital banking and online safety and shopping online, which was another good thing that was kind of needed, because that seems to be one of the things on our evaluations that people have always asked about. They're a bit too scared to shop online or put their details online and thinking they're going to get scammed. So these sessions have been really good. Then we went on to doing a project called 20 Chances, and so that some of the older people came up with some ideas that they wanted to teach young people, and the young people did the same with the older ones. So we did intergenerational cooking, some of the old, really old recipes that the older people taught the young people, and the other way around. Video diaries. So the young people asking questions, interviewing older people. And one of my memories best from that is one of the questions was a lady saying about how they did their homework using the library, and young people were like, how did you manage without internet? How did you manage to do homework without Google? So that was like a real big question to them at that point. They were just mind blown that you could do homework from just looking at a library book. So yeah, and activity like Wii games, we've done a lot of stuff so it's quite good to get the older people more active and stuff as well. So they quite like the game of bowling on the Wii. Yeah, it's just been fun. So all of these things have happened for years and years, and young people won an award. I think it was in 2012, the Young Scot Award for their intergenerational work. And there is a video which is quite funny to see, because you'll see if you Google it at some point. One of the old ladies who was nearly 90 at the time was basically chatting up the cameraman that came up and filmed the group. So she was quite happy. But so all these things have worked, and they've been working fairly well for years and years. But obviously, with lockdown, we had to stop all of that kind of thing happening. So I've also been part of like the local resilience group for all the COVID measures and stuff in this area, and it came up as a thing that how the older people were quite good at phoning each other, but they didn't always get online, or they didn't see each other. So I had some contact because my work is based in a community centre. So I knew quite a lot of the older people and from doing all the intergenerational stuff. So I had a couple that I messaged on Facebook originally, and we started like a Facebook video message weekly, which ended up me being a bingo caller to them, which I hate bingo. So they thought it was hilarious that I ended up doing bingo on Facebook Messenger. But then it became, there was a lot more wanting to join, plus not all of them had Facebook. So, and some of them didn't have Wi-Fi or internet or any kind of thing, or devices. So they got some of the funding through the Connecting Scotland, which has been brilliant. And the older people themselves put in I sent them the link and said I'd support them, but they did it themselves and put the link in and applied for some iPads and the MiFi boxes for the ones that didn't have internet in their house. And in normal times, that would have been a fantastic get to know your techno project, and the young people could have went in and helped the older people. But because of all the restrictions, it was way too dodgy to, normally if we ever do anything in somebody's house, it's always me plus a young person, just for safety and whatever. So it was too hard to try and get young people to go to somebody else's house. So I ended up doing that. And I'm no expert, but I've learned, So we got quite a few of them then set up with iPads, and it's been brilliant. And then they've got a Zoom thing. And we did Zoom bingo for about 2 months, I think, on a Thursday afternoon. But what was really good is because they're seeing each other's faces again and interacting. Some of the issues are, there's one lady that's got really bad eyesight. She's got, I can't remember the name of the.
It's macular degeneration. Oh, you've been muted. Sorry. Yvonne, you're up.
Sorry. Yeah, so I was going round to her house, set her up with getting the Zoom thing on, ready for the session to start. Then I'd come back to my house to start the actual session, but one of the older guys had set it up, and then he muted everybody straight away, so she could not unmute herself because she couldn't see the screen. So then I have to go back round to her house to unmute her so she could join in the session. So there's lots of brilliant positives, but there is definitely some issues, and size of screens and be able to see writing on screens. There's a few things there. But since then, so they're now independently, they meet every week on Zoom. I'm not involved in that. They do different activities like what they would have done in their old sessions. It's working fairly well, some dip in and some dip out. But last few weeks, we started doing an intergenerational quiz. on Zoom, and that worked really quite well. And the young people that I work with, I think, have got proper internet fatigue. And I think that's across the board. A lot of them are so fed up of being online. They're online in school, they're online all the time, and it's just become too much. And also, the video is a bit of an issue for young people, I think, because all the body image stuff and you're facing yourself. Older people don't seem to mind so much. Maybe it's a novelty, but for the younger ones, certainly what I work with, even on our youth forums, end up quite often turning their videos off because they just don't want to look at themselves. So for when we did the intergenerational quiz, I was a bit worried about how the young people were going to be. The older people were quite enthusiastic about it, but I was a wee bit more, are the young people really, they wanted to do it, but there's also a bit of, I'm not sure. But anyway, we did it and we put them in breakout rooms, and I ended up getting 2 of the young people. I messaged them the questions just as I went into the breakout rooms to say, oh, would you be happy to read out the questions? And it worked really well. But if I'd said to them in advance, right, I want you to be the quiz masters in these rooms, they probably just wouldn't have joined in. But they both, everybody enjoyed it. Everybody said it was really good, and we're now doing another one next week. So there's ways of getting through things. And I think I'll just stop talking.
Listen, Yvonne, thank you so much for that, because I know you've got the cold and it's quite long to speak. I can see lots of people on here that I'd love to speak to right now, and I can't because we're here at the webinar. But I must say that many people here today are involved in intergenerational work across. And what has happened, things have been halted. I'd probably just like to say, as a good example, recently, lots and lots of churches are using Zoom, and one of the older ladies who is a volunteer in a project for befrienders in between Calder Glen High and East Kilbride, she said to me, I met lots of people, and we were at one table, and then they put us at another table, and we met more people. So what happened was it was breakout rooms. So they had their church tea or coffee or whatever it was, and the minister there, he organised something last week for me to meet with an older person and a younger person to present an award. And what happened was the older person's daughter came along and set up Zoom ready for her to use. So that's a start. So sometimes there's someone in the middle who will assist with the process at home for the older person so that they can connect. So there's a lot of possibilities there. And as Ryan said earlier, there's some ideas, including video work. It is 10:30 now. Ryan, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
I thought this was worth showing. So at the end of our latest old school group, I asked the young people, the name of that project was to gather COVID stories using graphics and illustrations with a graphic facilitator come and support us, Emer O'Leary. And one of the young people done this, and I don't know if you can see it, if I can show that, but it's a picture of a computer and it says, Ryan struggling. And I just wanted to say that, it's not just young and older people that are going to have difficulties with this. Us as practitioners are going to find it challenging at times, and it's a complete learning process. And what I would say is, get on the journey to keep learning, and you will make mistakes and slip-ups are going to happen. We're at the forefront right now of digital intergenerational work, and every single person in this conversation wants to find out more and to make this a better thing. I would just embrace it and, get trying things out, basically, to try and see where you can take it.
Yeah, and it is the way forward. And without this connection, we wouldn't even see each other right now. And I suppose I spoke to Alice Burns yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah. And Alice works with sheltered housing complexes in Scotland, and we were having a conversation about the small percentage of people who do take up the whole online thing, and older people are saying to Alice, "Oh, I don't bother with that. That's rubbish. I'm not interested." And it's so I think it's about getting that motivation and getting them connected by saying, "Well, actually, this will be good for you as well." So it's thinking about things like that too. I see that Claire Miller's here, who's a children's author, who I've done some work with, and she was going to do some work with a local primary school. But what happened with COVID was that everything closed and the connections ceased. But Claire has made some videos that are shared online, reading stories, which is pretty good, you know, for Claire's reading the story to younger people. And we have some examples of nursing homes where an older person has been recorded reading from a storybook, and then it's been given to a group of younger children. Okay, it's not face to face, but it's something that's beginning to happen more. And I hope that as time goes on, you know, another 6 months, we'll have even more people digitally connected. Bev and Claire from SCVO, they're now at the second stage of the Connecting Scotland project, and tablets and MiFi are being given out to young people who are cared for, like corporate parenting in local authorities, and also to younger people across Scotland. So it'll be interesting to see the next part of that project. But anyway, I'd really like to hand over to any questions from anyone. You can either put them in the chat or put your hand up and come in and have a chat. Maybe not, maybe not, then that's okay. What I'll do is I'm going to share the screen again, and I'd just like to say that we have a lot of training materials and resources that are free. And if you do go to our website, you can join for free and then have access to these materials. Also, there's links to myself, Yvonne and Ryan in the PowerPoint too, so you can contact anyone about the work that they've been doing and find out more. You can contact me with the work that you've been doing, and if you would like access to free online training, please join Generations Working Together, because we have some new training in what is intergenerational work, planning an intergenerational activity, event or project, and we have something called looking at ageism through an intergenerational lens. And I think that Ryan will agree that ageism is something that happens to both generations, Yvonne as well. So older people can be ageist towards younger people and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%, Bella, 100%. And I think it's probably, you know, flipping it around the other way. It's the reason why it works when it works so well. Is because you've got two generations that are on the same level, and that authenticity that shines through. So no, I think that's definitely a good point to keep in mind. I might just add, I wanted to add, so I meant to say earlier, but I think one of the things I would encourage everyone to do as well, and it's something that we've strived on a weekly basis with our partners at Palmyra Development Project, you know, with the new spin, and it's how can you make it tangible? And how much texture can you add into these Zoom sessions? So, you know, even if we're doing a quiz, it's an envelope that opens up to a piece of card where there's a bit of blue tack to pin it to, you know, you need things to hold, you need things that you can open up. And by doing that, I think, you know, it might not seem much at the time, but it can sometimes just break through that little digital screen divide just that little bit more and really bring people together. And I think the more organised as well you are, the better those sessions go. And it's kind of flipped round, where in the past there wasn't that much prep. It was just kind of setting up the building and then engaging there and then, and we ran for 2 hours. It's kind of the other way about now. We do loads of, you know, hours of prep for what is, you know, a blink and the sessions are over. So it's kind of turned on its head. But I think, you know, I'd be, you know, really keen to hear any other creative ways people are using to kind of get that sense of tangibility and, you know, realism in there, basically.
I know that I've had contact with quarriers in Renfrewshire, and they're looking at it was children who are cared for, and they're looking at linking in with nursing homes, but it's also for looking at employment opportunities for the future, career opportunities for young people, finding out more about different areas in the community and mixing with older people, but also living in the community. So when you go out and get your own home when you're 16 or 17 or 18, it's knowing that you might have elderly or older neighbours, and it's about communicating and breaking down barriers in our communities. So there's so much more to intergenerational work, And there's intergenerational learning as well. So I think between us all and all the things that I'm seeing today in the chat, I'm really quite excited about the future and hope that digital connections will continue and get stronger. If no one has any more questions, Kate, do you have anything to add today?
Yeah, so I was going to say it was really interesting actually what Ryan was saying there about kind of using different elements. I've read something recently which was saying there's things you can do to make your meetings a bit more informal. So it was saying things such as, I thought this was quite a good idea. So after a meeting ends, you know, obviously if it's a bit more social meeting, you can have an extra 15 minutes just to kind of hang out, you know, sort of recreating that sort of after the meeting where you'd maybe chat to each other or have a formal chat, just having that, or having, so suggesting having like a cocktail or themed, and it can be non-alcoholic cocktail as well, but having something, you know, that you maybe said ahead of time that people can do, or bringing a snack. So adding that kind of texture. So I think it's really nice that Ryan has said that. And I think it can work in different settings. You know, you can do kind of different things. So yeah, try and
yeah, generally speaking, today's for 45 minutes, but we do have online training that lasts for a day. And I've got to say that we have like activities and people go into breakout rooms and have discussions and come back and do other things. And I know that Argyll and Bute network, they contacted me, one of the people in the network, and said, see, instead of a network meeting, can we have a party? I was like, oh, okay. So we're meeting next week with tea and Christmas things to just have a general chat, because people are tired. And I think there's a lot of stuff on about, you know, tiredness and doing things and activities to keep us motivated. There's some really good projects between young and older people with Paths for All, and it's to do with steps, and the older people have the pedometers and the young people have them, and then everybody at the end of the week links up with their steps to see how many steps they've done. So there's things like that on the go too. But I'm thinking along the lines of, you know, if we look at things like exercise classes as well, there's a lot of exercise classes online where older people can take part. And you know, people are saying we're reaching Zoom fatigue, you know, but I think that could be true for many of us who are working on all the time. But if we are just using it occasionally, which is probably, you know, a lot of people just use it occasionally, then it's not so bad. I, on Saturday night, had a Zoom quiz between Perth Masters Swimming Club and Inverclyde Swimming Club. And I took my grandson, and other people took their children, and we had older members and younger members, and we had a scavenger hunt. And part of the quiz, everyone had to run about the house looking for goggles and a swim cap, a toothbrush, an orange, and it was hilarious, and everyone joined in. So we've got to be creative.